It's my pleasure to welcome our own past President Harish Jakhtiani, the speaker for today. For those of you who may not know him, we have Soli Cooper to introduce him. Soli.
President Navroz, fellow Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little odd to introduce a Rotarian of such long standing to the Rotary Club, and especially when he's been a very distinguished past president himself. Harish is a man of many parts. He's an outstanding lawyer who completed his master's in constitutional and international law in 1971 and was admitted to the bar in that year. In 1994, he was designated as senior advocate. He has a vast and varied practice, spanning from criminal law to constitutional law, commercial law to matrimonial law. He has represented many very eminent sports personalities. His clients include Sachin Tendulkar and Mohinder Amarnath, and I suppose that would eminently qualify him to speak on what he's going to speak today. He's a particularly gifted singer, and many of us must have heard him sing. He's also a very, I don't know whether well known, but he's certainly a very gifted gambler. And there have been many conferences that I have spent in his office listening to racing commentary. He's an entrepreneur of sorts. He has set up his own, not only had he set up his own firm, but it has now transformed itself into a consultancy company called Oasis Counsel and Advisory, which is doing a huge amount of extremely varied legal and advisory work. Harish is a true Rotarian in every sense of the word. He has, to my personal knowledge, lived up to every one of the Rotary ideals. He is always willing to give of his time, his money, his energies, his knowledge to any cause worth fighting for. I have never approached him, and I have approached him many times, but I've never approached him and been turned away because a client could not pay or because it was too time consuming for him. He has been a professor of law, and it is particularly it's particularly gratifying for me to introduce him because he taught me. He was one of the most popular professors of his time. Harish, though has a very genial demeanor, is very easygoing. But don't let that deceive you. When he takes up a cause, he fights extremely hard, very, very strongly, but with complete fairness. I've never known Harish to be unethical or unfair in any legal matter, whether he is leading me or whether he has been against me. I've learned a lot from him and I've appeared a lot with him. He's not only an extremely good lawyer, but in my opinion, more importantly, he's a very good human being. It is unfortunate, but lawyers very often are not. They tend to carry over their aggressiveness in the court to matters outside. I don't want to go on and on about Harish, but I think we all know him extremely well as a friend and as a Rotarian. And so I would like to ask him now, speak to us on the topic of the day, which is about spot fixing and about what can be done about it under the law. Thank you.
President Navroz, fellow Rotarians, friends, thanks Soli. Dinner's on me tonight. He asked me, he said, I'm introducing you. Is there anything about you you don't want revealed? He pretty much stuck to his bargain, I must say. That's all. The importance of cricket is to be understood in terms of the type of headlines it makes, the type of passions it stirs. Just about coincident with the time when this match-fixing episode erupted, we had an earth-shattering event happening in this country. 24 or 25 people were massacred by Naxalites. That news has fairly faded in the background. But this match-fixing, so much so that it was decided a couple of weeks ago that I would speak today, it's still very much in the news. The reason is, of course, that the billion population that we have so readily identifies with cricket. Now, this Naxal problem is an enormous problem. Everyone knows that 173 districts in this country are plagued with the Naxal problem. It's a serious security threat. But yet, the type of people, the people that identify with it are very, very minuscule in comparison. But cricket, on the other hand, captures everyone's imagination. And perhaps there's a reason for that. It's in one sense a poor man's game. You've had such rags to riches stories. In fact, most of the stories in cricket success are rags to riches. It's played in gullies, it's played anywhere on the streets, and yet someone shows the talent and suddenly you know that he's celebrated in this country like a demigod. And of course, the game as such is such that it is so fraught with uncertainties. In fact, I don't know if anyone has realized that cricket, more than any other game that I know, approximates life in as much as you have just one chance. A batsman goes in, he may die at 5. He gets out at 5, he doesn't have another chance. Someone goes on to make a century. Well, that's really, in one sense, it does approximate life because of the complete uncertainty and the suddenness of the game. But I don't know what the rationale is. The point is that this country is completely captured by the game, and hence we have these couple of cliches which I hate repeating. Whether we call it cricket is a religion, cricket is a funny game, but you can't help it. These cliches are actually true. They have life in them. And let me tell you that politicians here have realized that this is an important tool, an important machine with which they can create a base for themselves, have a voice for themselves. Now, for instance, what happened recently? For the first time, I think, Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi got together for a common cause, namely to appease the Tamilians in their state. They said no Sri Lankans will be allowed to play on our soil. Now, this is how this whole instrument of cricket is used. You have the Shiv Sena in Bombay not allowing Pakistanis to come here. All this obviously gives them an obvious platform. In Jammu and Kashmir also you have the audience booing the Indian team, making a statement. Now that is the importance of the game of cricket, and it's something that we have to live with. But it's not just this aspect. There is the other aspect, and namely the money that revolves around cricket in its various aspects. There is money. For instance, let's discuss the 3 components that we're concerned with in today's talk. You have, first of all, the Board for Control of Cricket in India, the BCCI. Now, I don't know how many of you know that it was set up as a society under the Madras Society Registration Act as a private body. It then acquired all these monopolistic powers, and it was patronized by the state. One doesn't really know because the balance sheet of the BCCI is never made public. There is no obligation of them in the law to make it public. It is meant to be, it is rumored to be, or it is stated to be the richest sports body in the world, in excess of the funds that they have, far in excess of the FIFA, that's FIFA. Their revenues, to what we know from some of the figures which are published, is about 800 crores a year. And it gets its revenues from gates, from television rights, from all this. So this is how rich the club is, or this is how rich the board is. Then you have this other aspect, which we're going to discuss today, namely wagering and gambling around cricket, around this whole game of cricket. I was shocked when I read these statistics that in a year, $60 billion are wagered in a year in India. That comes to 3 lakhs crores. Now this is all forms of gambling. Some of the stuff which of course Suli alluded to, which I may have indulged in once in a while, but nowhere near these figures. A small part goes into horse racing, a small part goes into some other forms of gambling. Slightly larger than that goes into matka gambling, but the bulk of it goes into cricket. Now we'll come to that a little later and see what they can do, whether this can be used as a means of revenue, whether there's a case for legalizing gambling or not. But I'm just saying that this is the enormity of this industry which works around the game of cricket. Perhaps, if ever gambling becomes legal here, and the BCCI, for instance, sets up an online site like Betfair. You're familiar with Betfair, where you can actually bet with your credit card. We get, I don't know what the revenues would be, but that's the potential for some more revenues, simply because this industry of gambling revolves around cricket. And then, of course, you have the players themselves. Some of these players are rich beyond anyone's dreams, obviously thanks to the endorsements. But apart from the endorsements, you also have their take-home salary, a fairly hefty amount. Gone are the days where a player, especially a Ranji player, etc., would barely get his taxi fare to go and attend to play a game. But now all that has changed. They are remunerated very, very heavily. So therefore, let's have no illusions. Cricket is not only about the power that you can wield, but it's also about money. And therefore, it's no wonder, no surprise, that various boards, the regional boards, who are their presidents, chief ministers of the state, they realize full well what's in it for them. And therefore, the politicians have got, in fact, such a stranglehold over them. And I dare say that one can really wonder as to why reforms are not taking place. Because probably there is a lot of vested interest, but we'll come to that, and those are some of the thoughts that I wish to throw. Now let's come to what sparked off this entire debate, or what captured the news, the incident itself. What was it? Srishant and a couple of other cricketers were paid to underperform. Paid to underperform, why? Because you can't be bribed to perform well. It's not under your control. You can't give Chris Gayle a bribe and say, make a century. He'll say, well, I'll take the money from you, but I don't guarantee that I'll be able to do anything. But you certainly can bribe someone to underperform. And that's really what happens. When fixing takes place, it is only with a view to have the player underperform to do so. So what happened here, at least that's what the news has told us, that Srishant was paid 60 lakhs of rupees. By the way, I'm going to make out a case as to why the law is inadequate to deal with him. But it's not that I'm holding a brief for him. I mean, I wouldn't have minded, because we know how much he's worth now, and you know how much you could have charged him, barring the few lakhs that he may have spent on his girlfriend. But you know he's at least worth 60 lakhs. So 60 lakhs is paid to him. What is he supposed to do? Bowl in such a manner that he concedes 16 or 17 runs, or whatever the figure is, in a particular over. Now, mind you, if this matter goes to trial, I dare say Srishant on these facts alone may have a good defense. Because all he'll argue is that, it takes two to tango. I may bowl, but the other person's got to take advantage of it. And how often you've heard that an ace batsman gets out to a bad ball. So it's just, so therefore, but nonetheless, the rationale is that you're paid to underperform. And secondly, the nature of this T20 particularly is such that a single ball can make a difference to the whole event, to the whole game. Please consider this. One ball can yield 13 runs. How? You bowl a no ball, a loose delivery, a no ball, it's hit for a 6. The next ball is a free ball. You bowl the same sort of loose delivery, and it's hit for a 6. Therefore, all that has been spent is one ball, and the score goes up by 13 on the other side. Now, all these games are so closely fought that a single ball can make a difference to the outcome of the game. Now, it lends itself. So this is really what had happened, that he was asked to underperform which he did, and this sparked it off. Of course, they say that they have video recordings of his, and not video recordings, sorry, audio recordings of his, and he had agreed that he would, when he came up to TV, give them an indication that he would stick a towel in his side. Now, you know, that, I mean, that's the sign that he's supposed to have given. But again, Srishant could argue that every Mallu has a towel stuck on his side. I mean, at the best of times. So what? I was doing nothing unusual about it. And then he does a little workout. The point is that if they have to pin him there, they'll have to pin him through sheer forensic evidence, the cogency of the forensic evidence. His voice will have to be identified, and it will have to be said that in no uncertain terms, this is the contract that he had struck with the bookies. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to bring home a conviction.